I want to tell you about a moment. Not the moment the doctor said the word cancer. I already told you about that one. I want to tell you about the moment after. The moment I was alone in a hospital hallway and my body just gave out. I want to tell you what it feels like when your legs stop working. When the wall is the only thing holding you up. And then even the wall isn't enough. That moment has a date for me. February 2nd, 2010. I will never forget it for as long as I live. When the gastroenterologist told us there was a tumor that he was pretty sure was cancerous, we didn't sit down, we didn't process it, we didn't cry in that office, we moved. That's what you do, you move, because moving feels like doing something, and doing something feels like fighting, and fighting feels better than falling apart. We started making phone calls. Anyone who might know someone, anyone who might be able to help us figure out what to do next. My sister's an ER doctor, and she went to work immediately, and within hours she had found us a colorectal surgeon who could see us right away. We walked into that surgeon's office the same day, still carrying the colonoscopy pictures from that morning. He looked at them. He was an upbeat guy, the kind of person who fills the room with energy. He looked at those images and said, almost with a laugh, that this was a big and ugly tumor, but that he was going to do everything he could. That was enough. We just needed someone who wasn't afraid of it. Because Greg was still in a fasting state from the colonoscopy, the surgeon was able to move us into his first scheduled surgery slot the following morning. A favor, a gift, a door opened when we desperately needed one. I don't think either one of us slept that night. I mean, how do you sleep? You're lying in the dark and next to your person. And the only thing standing between today and tomorrow is a few hours of time that you can't hold on to, and a surgery you're terrified of. We got up early. We kissed our babies goodbye. Some friends came to take them to school. And then Greg and I got in the car and we drove to the hospital in silence. There are silences that are peaceful. And there are silences that hold everything you can't bring yourself to say out loud. That was the second kind. After we checked into the hospital and Greg was prepped for surgery, I went to kiss him goodbye. I was really trying to hold it together. I wasn't doing a very good job though. He kept telling me, everything's gonna be okay, sugar, everything's gonna be okay, sugar. He could see the tears, he could see me shaking slightly, but he saw it. And he kept saying it, everything's gonna be okay. And then they came for him. And I watched the surgical team wheel him out of his room. I watched him move down that hallway. I watched those big surgical doors close behind him. And I just stood there. I don't know how long I stood there. I guess long enough that it didn't make sense anymore. Long enough that my body made a decision my mind hadn't caught up with yet. I leaned against the wall and I slid down into that floor, right there in that hospital hallway, on the ground. I was physically frozen. My heart, it ached in a way I didn't know a heart could ache. A few hours later, the surgeon called my sister and I out of the waiting room. Greg was out of surgery. The surgeon started going through everything, the technical details, where he made the incisions, what he examined, what he checked. He was going through it step by step the way doctors do. And I understood why. I know that's how they're trained, but I couldn't hold any of it. And finally I just said, please just tell me what happened. And he stopped. And then he told me he had been able to remove the large tumor from Greg's colon completely because of where it was located in the middle of the colon. So Greg would not need a colonic bag. And that was good news. And then came the rest. When they opened Greg's liver, the cancer had spread. Both lobes were covered with nodules. The top part of Greg's pancreas was inflamed. The surgeon had started cutting out what he could, but there was too much of it. It had traveled too far. Greg had stage 4 colon cancer. The cancer had spread from its original organ to secondary ones. That's what stage 4 means. I fell to my knees right there in that small room, my head pressed against the ground, sobbing the way I had never sobbed before. The kind that comes from somewhere so deep inside you, it doesn't even sound like crying. It sounds like something is breaking. I will never forget that moment. I will never forget that room. I will never forget that day. February 2nd, 2010. I walked into the ICU unit a little while later. Greg was still trying to wake up. The anesthesia was still pulling at him. His eyes were closed. I leaned over and I told him I loved him. Tears running down my face, not even trying to stop them anymore. And he heard me. And with his eyes still closed, still halfway under, he asked me the only question he had. Did they get all of it? I waited. I don't know for how long. It felt like a very long time. And then I said quietly, no. His face with his eyes still closed just crumpled. The way a face does when a person receives the worst possible answer to the only question that mattered. Oh no. That's all he said. Oh no. The next few hours were a blur. Friends started arriving at the hospital. So many of our people showing up the way people do when there is news that is bad and they don't know what else to do but be present. Greg would stay in that hospital for the next few weeks. He told me later that the surgeon had visited him that day in the afternoon and told him to get his affairs in order. He had at best 3 months left to live. Before I go, this is what I want you to hold on to today. There will be moments in your life, maybe you have already had them, where the news is so heavy that your body simply cannot carry it standing up, where the floor becomes the only honest place to be. If you have ever been on that floor, I see you. I've been there too. And I want you to know something. That floor is not where your story ends. It is just where you rest before you find the strength to stand back up. You may feel like you are broken. You may have been broken, but you will not stay broken. You are still here, and the fact that you are still here means your story is not finished. So try to keep walking forward. I'll be right here walking with you. I'm Nadine, and this is Widowed Not Broken.